session seeks to actually see how we can actually integrate AI, one of the leading tech conversation now, into arts. And of course, the theme of this particular session, is one that actually tends to actually awaken us to our contemporary reality, and it actually seeks to ask this particular question. AI is silver lining for creatives. It's actually a very big question mark. I'm not going to be doing this alone. I'm here with a tech expert, a guru, one who has done tech for quite some time. Of course, while I was here speaking, the second panelist has still walked in. He is also a cultural advocate. He's also been one who has successfully done well with integrating AI into the arts. So my first speaker to my right is Mr. Lawal, editor-in-chief at Tech Cabal, and also the founder of archive.ng. He's a tech expert by all standards. Of course, going to be joining us to actually join this conversation. Going to be taking a conversation from a tech standpoint, and of course, to my left is Mr. Femi Morgan, a journalist, an arts and cultural advocate. A man of many parts. So let's get down to it. One of the things I would like us to kick start is that over time there has been this concern, especially by professionals, arts people, and all that AI has come to stay, and a lot of people have actually expressed concern that AI will definitely take over their jobs. I would like you to speak to it, and then we'll delve into the matter.
Hi, okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I think a good place to start is
I was expecting you to actually try to douse attention. Truly, there's nothing of such. But of course, thanks for that honest feedback. So, over to Mr. Femi Morgan. You are one who has actually transversed the arts and culture space for some time now, close to 2 decades. So you actually understand what it means to be a creative, right, by every standard. And of course, you are one who has actually worked creating festivals and all that. So the big question, Mr. Fuad has actually given us some insight that every technology, comes with its own, what do you call it now, intro. Yeah. And of course, those intro would eventually be the results of such was, the hybrid system, for those who work at 9 to 5 and all that. So for you, right, you have also I also know that you've actually also tried to employ AI, in some of the things you actually do and all. So the same question actually applies to you. Do you think AI, will eventually take up jobs from creatives?
I think AI has come to stay. I think that the big corporations are really investing in AI, and they are looking at projects that are even AI enabled, because big corporations are building big machines for AI, and they want the rest of the world to use AI. And so if you because I have tested AI, I've seen that AI can write better poetry than I can. I've tested the AI voice. I see that AI voice can perform poetry than I can. So if you are thinking of creating, the challenge for a creative person will be to create an experience that AI that is the biggest challenge. Creating an experience, creating human connection. Because after all,
Femi had mentioned some things that are very, very critical. Femi had also actually mentioned some things that are very, very critical to this conversation. He had said that one of the things he said is COVID taught every one of us a very big lesson. Perspective. But of course, in this room, we have people who are not 9 to 5, right? We have people who all they do, is the creatives, right? Either they are performing or they are actually doing things around maybe art merchandising and all that. They don't even have anything to do with, 9 to 5, right? And of course, they are creatives and they have to survive, right? You are a tech guru. What would be, I know we have a whole lot of, what you call it now, a lot of AI tools, that are flying all about. I know we have ChatGPT, which of course everybody knows. I know we have Gemini, and quite a whole lot. I think DeepSeek from the Japanese perspective. Only recently I delved into some, for some history of AI, and I discovered that AI actually started in the 40s with the digital programmable computers in the 1940s, and then it's evolved over time to what we now have now. All right, so from your own experience as a tech practitioner, right? Oh, I know everything you do is tech, right? What would be your own, your own one couple, advice or one couple input into how these creatives can actually evolve from just being creative or for creativity's sake, but for creatives who are evolving and for creatives who can actually survive in the contemporary world?
Good question. I need to add that in some way I identify first of all as a creative. I do not even really see myself as a tech guru. If I had all the time in the world, I'll spend all of it writing or making films. I think that fundamentally, I guess in all my, so when he says AI has been with us since the 40s, that's like what we call AI is actually multiple things and multiple iterations, natural language processing, neural networks, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to bore you with the details. But first of all, like there are two broad ways to think about how we use AI today, right? And so there is predictive AI. So for example, the reason why when you open your phone today and you check the weather app, it tells you when rain will fall. That is an example of predictive AI, right? Um, there is like even your algorithms on YouTube. There's a reason why you start watching a certain type of video, your YouTube starts to give you more of that kind of stuff, right? That is also AI. But I think it's important to reiterate that in the context of this conversation, the AI we're talking about is generative AI. The AI that basically generates stuff, right? You say, give me a photo of Tinubu doing backflips, and it gives you an image. That's generative AI. Fundamentally, in the context of generative AI, I think that they currently do two things, and they probably do other things, but it's simple to think about what they do in the context of like creative outputs or the creative process is that one, they help to supercharge productivity and they try to like amplify the experience. I'll break the two down. Supercharging productivity is there anyone here who is a journalist or has been a journalist? Anybody? Anybody who has to interview a lot of people? Like do interviews and write about it? Okay, nobody. So I used to work in a newsroom, right, as a reporter. And one of the things I quickly learned is that half of journalism is just transcribing. Um, you speak to a person for 1 hour just so I can transcribe the whole thing and then use one quote from them. Um, but like instead of spending that hour transcribing, or that hour or 2 hours transcribing, what an LLM helps me do is auto transcribe it, right? That makes me a little more productive. So that's 3 hours I would have spent transcribing. I'm now spending 3 minutes on a transcript. Maybe I spend another 15 minutes reviewing it. That saved me time. And what you want to do is that you want to look at every part of your creative process and basically say, what are the aspects of my creative process that I don't want to stress about right now, right? People who work in video experience this thing a lot, where you realize that you don't have enough shots and so you need B-roll or you need extra shots to tighten your footage, right? You can use VO, and I'm saying this as someone who has had to deal with this. You can basically go to VO, maybe upload like the presets of your video, like the coloring, a couple of frames to give the vibe and texture, and basically say, "Oh, help me generate like 3 or 4 image videos in this particular context," and so on and so forth. And suddenly you have a much tighter video, right? That would have cost you money. For example, 5 years ago, if you had to rent cameras, go outside, reshoot, and so on and so forth. Um, with music, for example, a lot of the time when people make videos, they always need sound and all of that. You have a particular sound preference. There are LLMs that help you generate sound, right? So it helps you supercharge your creative process. And I somehow now moved it into like amplifying the experience. Now, a video is better because that shot that you did not have the ability or resources to capture, you can suddenly now get this with an LLM, right? In the context of amplifying experience also, you want to deliver, you want to ship, you want to say you're working on a story, and I'll use my own personal experience. So in 2020, I did some work with the African Youth. We had, say, a super summary again is think of your entire process and say, what aspect of this process do I genuinely hate? For example, do I hate transcribing? Yes, I do. How can it help me like supercharge that process? What part of the experience can it help me amplify and make it better? How can it help me do that? So yeah, that's it.
Let me add to that. So if you run an agency and you have to do videos, you have to do text, you have to do photos, you have to edit, you have to do all of that. And every time you go through a lot of stress, I think that along that line, AI can help you a lot. AI can be your virtual assistant. But I think that the gatekeepers are resisting AI at the moment. If you apply in certain spaces, certain spaces, you might be flagged down for using AI. If you write your thesis, your MA thesis, you might be flagged down for using AI. If you apply for a writing workshop, you might be flagged down for using AI. So I think that the gatekeepers are resisting AI, and that is something that is good in a way, but at the same time bad in another way, depending on how you look at it. I think that the major problem with AI, and has been proven by what you could call psychologists, is that too much use of AI affects your productivity as a person, and it has been tested. There was a university that placed someone. Creativity, his productivity sort of went down, and there's another person who is constantly challenging his or her brain, and that person is far more productive, far more solution driven than the person who uses AI, because you are constantly tempted to solve your problems. Argue for almost 24 hours. You are arguing every point, looking at cognitive biases, looking at feminist biases, looking at all my biases, improving my texts, because I'm arguing with a machine that is well aware of human perspectives, And so by the time I'm done with that article, I already know the response of the public before the public already starts to react to that article. Because I already asked AI, the average Nigerian, how will they see this article? So with that, you can evolving into natural language machine learning, while you constantly have to challenge yourself to keeping your originality. The second thing is, yes, the internet is filled with so much knowledge, but I can guarantee you that there are some knowledge that is local, that the world still needs explication, needs clarity. So that folklore in your village, that story, that uniqueness that is unique to you, you can still continue to explore it irrespective of AI, because AI is constantly looking. People are looking for originality. Beyond AI, people are looking for out-of-the-box ideas. People are looking for a deeper understanding of the human response to marketing, to engagement. And that does not come from AI. It comes from experience. AI may have all the knowledge, but I don't think that AI has all the experience that you bring to the table as a person. And so it is up to you to continue to hone your craft and continue to evolve, along the lines of technology while you hone your craft, so that you don't turn out to be a zombie that cannot do anything without AI. Like COVID. What if the machines shut down? What happens to your brain? what do? You have to constantly protect your brain while you use AI. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm still on you. Femi. Mr. Fuad, I think I'm at a crossroad now. I think I'm loving this conversation. Now, he had mentioned that there's need for, I think you mentioned that there's need for us to evolve. And now, with Femi's contribution, he's saying that, well, there's also need for one to apply natural creativity, in balancing this so that one does not become obsolete or a zombie or some sort. So, of course, I'm still going to come back to that. Now, you are a creative. I'm still going to go back to that. And of course, this particular session is a hands-on session for creatives, all right? And we have to actually reiterate this particular bits so much so. Now, you had mentioned that there's need to protect your brains. We don't go obsolete. There's need for this, but there's need for that. Now, in the world of creativity, right? You have the writers, you have the performers, you have the visual artists, and so on and so forth, right? There are people who ordinarily you would think that they don't have any need for AI, right? They don't need to. For instance, a filmmaker, for instance, who is a performer, for instance, she need an AI to give her direction on what to do or say on stage. Or for instance, someone who is a visual artist, right? Do you need that person to get inspiration from AI? I know there are some AI tools now that can generate very beautiful graphic works, right? All right, and of course, we are talking about these things because we want to protect our artists from going into extinction, and AI come to take over these things. So, from your own, I love your perspective to these things, but there's still also that need, right, for the artists, the creatives, to actually bring these things, bring AI, being one of the things that is taking the front burner, who's taking the front stage now, in the world conversation, technological advancement and all that. There's need for AI to be right in the face of everybody, be you a professional, creative or whatever creative abilities. How can they, marry AI, being the tech part of it, and marry their own creativity, which is, of course, their own natural ability. How can they marry both?
I think that for the performer, I'm tempted to say that the AI is paternalistic. AI studies patterns. So all existing patterns that have been sort of supplied into the internet space is available to AI. So for me, my understanding of how people engage pattern is that you want to preserve pattern. It's okay, but you must constantly also deviate from pattern. And that's where your brain and your inspiration and your personal touch comes to play. As a performer, you know the patterns, you know the culture, you know what you have been taught in school, in the theater houses, in workshops and all. Those are standard practices. Know the standard practices. But challenge yourself into experimental forms challenge yourself into practicing and engaging experimental forms that puts a signature on your work. That's the first thing. You have to marry AI. There's no how you won't marry AI. But while marrying AI, it's like marrying a wife. The question will be that, would you now become the wife? Absolutely. Find balances between what AI produces and what you bring into the space. But eventually, one of the There was a time, it was Forbes, I think it was Forbes, that listed about 30 new jobs, 30 new jobs that will remain after AI becomes really, really large and all of that. And one of the jobs which gave me a lot of peace of mind is continuous learning. The ability to solve problems, the ability to touch problems in a way that is out of the box, and the ability to understand not only patterns in your industry, but to deviate from those patterns and get better results from AI. That is the biggest challenge of the creative. The creative will use AI, but don't forget, if you are, for example, if you're a photographer, you use AI, you use AI, you use AI, you use AI. AI is probably going to give you almost the same cultural patterns that is aligned to what you want to do. And so if you are competing for the same price, let's say Kofi Awono prize for Nigerian literature, you use AI, you use AI, you use AI, you use AI, and I'm the judge. I'm likely to think that you guys have copied each other, either conceptually or linguistically. So for me, I'll probably trash your work, because what I'm looking for is that unique person, that unique voice in your performance, in your writing, the idea of photography and videography is how you see things. So I really want to still see how you see things, how you get your angles, different from how AI will duplicate and duplicate and duplicate, and we'll all be bored very soon if AI is doing all the jobs. Thank you.
All right. So,
I'll quickly a bunch of things you said. First one is that study. I don't go into the study, but the broader point of the study, points largely stands. But there's also something to keep in mind. Every single time, as a species, so I have a tendency to default to a longer horizon, right? As a species, every time we have employed a tool to extend our cognitive ability, we've had a cognitive trade-off. A cognitive trade-off, like just a mental trade-off. Every time we pick a new tool to extend our ability, like we've had a mental trade-off. So, as a species, we spent a lot of time memorizing. Then we invented books, right? So we no longer felt the need to memorize as much, right? I don't know when people here left secondary school, but like when you want to solve a math problem, the first thing you try to do is solve it in your head, right? When you can solve it in your head, the next thing you do is open a calculator. 100 years ago, you have to solve all of that out. That is the trade-off. So we are worse at like solving the math. We are still good at arriving at the answers, but we are worse at like actually solving the math, right? Or should I say lazier? Maybe that's a better word. And that is inevitably going to happen, right? The process of transcribing, as much as I hate it, it helps in some way to review the story sometimes. The process of like going to do research and getting lost in research, it really, really helps. You find random stuff, enter random rabbit holes. I was editing a story last year, and the person writing on the story was going to look for information on like the election of the late 1970s, right? Shagari election, and she ended up finding the security guy who was a boxer in the 70s, and that's a random thing that you cannot find on an LLM, right? But she could have gotten a lot of the information she went to look for. If it was online, she could have gotten all that information in like 10 minutes. Also, instead of spending 3 hours commuting back and forth in Lagos. So like the trade-offs are present, and our job is to be aware of them and acknowledge them, right? The other thing about like the other part about like the creative process, I also agree that it is true that like you want to invest a lot of energy in the aspects that cannot be outsourced to AI. I'm also saying this knowing that the reason why we can say it confidently is because as a species we haven't cracked, like the models still don't know how to capture real world, real time context, right? They are decent at it, but you need to raise it up. Has anybody here seen Predators, a new Predator movie? Nobody. Okay. So, like for example, if you have an Android phone, right? There's a very high chance that if you open your Gemini and you open the multimodal mode and you point it and say, "Oh, who is that?" You say, "Oh, that's a guy wearing a purple shirt and all of those things," right? That's where the technology is at. But like, there's also the thing to understand with AI. I'm really trying to, I'm trying to paint like some of the worst case scenarios because like that's how you become defensible by being paranoid. By being paranoid and proactive, not paranoid and defensive. Um, every single thing that LLMs do today, every single thing, like we didn't think it was possible a decade and a half ago, right? So there's a famous first breakthrough in AI, which is AlphaGo. There's this game, one of the most complex board games in the world, right? And this company called DeepMind that ended up getting acquired by Google was the first to get AlphaGo to beat a human being, to beat the world champion. But it didn't just beat the world champion from copying. It beat the world champion by inventing new moves that didn't exist, right? 3 years ago, and I'm sure people who work in video here participated in saying that we all saw the Will Smith eating spaghetti video and said there is no way, this is so shitty, this is not taking anybody's job. You should ask Bill today to show you Will Smith eating spaghetti, and that should give you a sense of where things are. Technology has mostly advanced in centuries, decades, but like the pace of models now is weeks, and it is ridiculous, right? I keep using these examples because it is super critical to know what the best models are doing because of how much impact they have in your own life. It is super important to know how they work, what they are doing, so that you know how to become defensible, right? There are, I guess, more conversations to be had about defensibility and all of that. But for example, let me use my own self. Something I know will continue to matter to me is the ability to like produce original work, right? I know that will continue to be important to me as a person. And so the question I ask myself is, in what ways can I use the model to produce original work, right? So I think the first time I properly integrated, this is I guess me now going into examples. The first time I properly integrated, used like LLMs in like I think it was 2023 or 2022, I can't remember, 2023 I think. And it was about, it's called a night endgame, like nights. And it was about Sunday on Okoya. And I was trying to understand, I was looking for an allegory to like really, or a metaphor to really like reinforce the point of his life that I had written about. And so I pasted my draft in the model and I'm like, I need like a metaphor to really explain what has happened in his life, right? And I needed to like check every context, in the context of chess, in every society. And he told me that, oh, in Germany there's a dilemma in chess called Zugzwang, which is when you have two outcomes to play, and each outcome is equally horrible. And it was like, oh, and the model was, and I was in ChatGPT, and it was like, oh, like he's in that dilemma because this is what his life has done, this is what life has offered, this is what life has offered. And it feels like what he's trying to do with the kids is help them break out of Zugzwang, right? That's a concept that I'd have had to read like hardcore chess books to encounter, right? But the model helped me surface that. And that really resonated with people. Do you understand? That really resonated with people because people are like, oh, I get the concept of Zugzwang in many aspects of Nigerian life, right? Small game I do in my house recently is that I have this frame hanging in the room. Of course, I'm going to tell you in advance that it's AI. And so when people come and I'm like, oh yeah, that's good, they're like, oh, wow, I really like it. I'm like, what do you like about it? And they start shalaing, oh, is this, is that, this, is that. I'm like, so who made it? I'm like, ChatGPT. And they're like, because a lot of times people saying, oh, like when you see AI art, you know. And the question I always ask when people say stuff like that is, well, what did you tell it? What was your prompt? What context did you feed it, right? Oh, AI writing is obvious. Is it? For example, one of the, like a newsroom I work with, one of the things that we first experimented with last year is that a fundamental step in the reporting process is fact-checking, right? And it was an article, I think August last year, about Bosun, like the minister. And it was like 3,000 words long, 3 to 4,000 words long. Like a proper deep dive, like tearing apart like everything he had done. Or basically dissect everything he had done, not tearing apart. And I remember asking, I was like, oh, we need to fact check this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Fact checking is fundamentally a question of, is this accurate or is this not accurate, right? And then I basically asked the model that, based on the principles of fact checking like, and claims, what are all the things in this article that should be fact checked? Now, the process of normally like reading through an article and finding and outlining everything that should be fact checked is like roughly 1 hour, one hour for that kind of article. And I was like, and in like 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes, it highlighted 34 fact-checking points. And then we outlined those things, and we started like researching each of them. Like, find me and the research was like, find me a link to validate or invalidate each of these arguments. And basically outlined all the links he could find, the ones he could not find, and then now he's gonna do deep research to find like about 6 or 7 links, right? In the end, the reporting was still critical because like the minister was losing his mind. Hey, right? Like it still got the impact it was supposed to get. But the effort and ability to deliver that work